2020.
I'm sure.
In reality, that agreement, that offer, would have lasted out to March 31st. 34 days later. 34 days later.
All read by paper.
The Premier responded, asking us to come to the Chancery Building for meetings over a 2.5-day period.
So,
to review
Higgs,
proposals and to strike an agreement
Higgs is so
that would have
foolish.
given his minority government
So Higgs wants to be a dictator.
without an official opposition.
And what's going to happen here
This was
is
totally unacceptable.
he refused
for me
to
as
call
leader
a
of the party.
by-election. If he calls
My
a
thoughts.
by-election and lets this guy, Vickers,
These meetings were attended
to
by
win
myself and colleagues
and let him
with faith.
face Higgs during question
But I
period.
question the manner in which the meetings
I can't wait to you listen
For
to him
example,
answer the questions.
the proposal that we were given.
He's reading from a piece
We
of
were
paper.
given a time frame of an hour
He's not a politician.
to review the proposal and come back with suggestions. Now this is a proposal that would see a government stay in power, a minority government stay in power for a period of 2 years
And act like a majority.
without official opposition.
Yeah.
When we mentioned that
My
these
God.
time frames were unrealistic,
See, the bottom line here,
we were told, threatened, that if it had not been completed, by
if
the end of
Higgs
today,
called an
an
election
election would be called.
during a crisis,
This was a negotiation
he will not be
of having a gun to your head.
gun. You're
Totally unacceptable.
oh, gun to your head. You must like
It will
that,
be the
Kevin.
Premier's decision
Oh, you got my attention. Got my
Call an
ADHD
election
attention. A gun to your
during
head.
this pandemic.
That's what he's going to do with me.
I
Show
want
me.
to again,
Yes,
once again
we agree.
inform you that we have committed
Yeah,
not to bring down this government
yeah.
during this time frame, guaranteeing the Premier that we would not
When he mentioned the word gun, it distracted what I was going to say.
out to March 31st,
gonna
the
say,
time
yeah.
period of 7 months that
Yeah.
remains.
That was Liberal Leader Kevin Vickers speaking.
Didn't
at a
answer his
press conference
questions.
this afternoon
Or
in
question for the
Fredericton
media.
Just about an hour ago, we've just reached Green Party leader David Coon. He's
Yeah.
on the line. Good afternoon.
There we go.
I'm very well.
Now, he's
what
not
are
going to
your
read from a
thoughts
piece of
on
paper.
This deal kind of falling apart this afternoon.
Well, it's disappointing. We did a lot of hard work over the last 2.5 days to try and reach what would be an unprecedented agreement in political history in Canada among all parties in the Legislative Assembly to agree to collaborate to maintain a minority government and work in a collaborative fashion that you don't see very much, certainly not among all parties at once. And so it's disappointing. And there's lots more work to do, that's for sure, but we've made significant progress and towards how that might work. And my MLAs had booked their rooms to stay overnight and work through the weekend because it was clear if we were going to continue forward, we would need to do quite a bit more work. But we'd moved the bar for sure.
Describe to me how this unfolded this afternoon, because there was a break and everybody went back to talk to their caucuses.
Can
and then
the
at 3
Lord
o'clock,
help us?
3 of the party leaders arrived and one didn't. Did you know then that it was done?
Well, I wasn't sure. I mean, we broke because the Liberals had scheduled a caucus meeting. So that's the reason we took the break. And we were expecting to hear back from them on, in particular, on the ideas we had developed around a supply and competence agreement, and if they were positive for it, sort of leaning in that way, then we would have, of course, got to work to incorporate issues they would have raised and try and build on what had been done to date. But that didn't happen, of course. They took the decision that they were pulling out, so they pulled out.
Now, going into these negotiations, you seem to be the one most reluctant to get into an agreement like this. I mean, were you able to address some of those concerns over the last couple of days? It sounds like you were fairly positive about where things were headed.
Well, when I saw the agenda that we were going to be dealing with, I was very skeptical in terms of how that actually might work.
Right.
But clearly, once we got into the discussions, the Premier was sincere about this. Now, he's a corporate guy, and so he has a whole other working style, and it's not something that, some of us who have never been in that world are used to. So it makes it challenging at times to work together, and so, it required everyone's best efforts, no question about it. But the one thing I'll say is no one can accuse him of not being sincere about this effort. But there are a lot of issues, a lot of things got discussed, and if we were to move forward with input back from Liberal caucus, we would have needed to work into the weekend, no question.
Lots of work to be done. I mean, your concern going in was that you would be handing them kind of a blank check, sort of a yes to a budget that you hadn't seen, and what would become of the opposition. Were those issues being dealt with?
Well, absolutely, we're talking about those things, of course, because for this to work, as has happened in British Columbia with the agreement that's in place there between the Greens and the NDP, you've got to spend a lot of time on agreeing on what the nature of consultation will be around bills, around budgets, around throne speeches, when it happens, how that is all managed, so that it's genuine and early enough to make a difference. And so, that would have been one of the next things we were going to need to talk about if the Liberals had come back with an interest in continuing to really start to nail down some of those details to go with the idea of how this would all work.
The Liberal leader, Kevin Vickers, described this as a negotiation with a gun to your head. Did you feel that way?
No, I didn't feel that way. I felt like I said, there was way too much on the agenda. There's no question about that. But I felt that with momentum in place around issues we were working on, that there would have been no problem in pushing through into the evening and into the weekend. And as I said, both my MLAs had booked rooms to stay tonight and through the weekend if needed to do that work. But we didn't get there, and so that's the way it worked out.
So what happens from here? I mean, can there be a three-party deal? The Premier seems to say no.
Well, I made it clear to the Premier that certainly we hadn't closed any doors in terms of discussions between our party and his directly, one-on-one. So we haven't closed that door. He's got a decision to make, and so we'll see what he decides. But there's, as we've been saying all along, there's all kinds of choices here in terms of avoiding an election. But he's of course who makes that decision.
He's just said that he won't call an election in the next 48 hours. We'll take the weekend to think about next steps. What is your weekend going to be like?
Well, Kazoo is tomorrow, the National Acadian Day, Acadian holiday. So I'll be participating in some events in Fredericton and other parts of the province, and at the same time, obviously, we've already necessarily had to activate our planning for the potential of a potential election campaign. So that's all unfolding as well. And so there'll be lots of conversations, lots of calls, and we'll see what the Premier decides on Monday.
We certainly will. Listen, thanks very much for the time today. Appreciate it.
Nice speaking with you.
Take care.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
That is Green Party leader David Kuhn. Your thought?
Now, there's only one thing left to do. It's very simple. You call the by-elections. So people can get used to vote during the coronavirus or the system and find out what's going on. But to call a provincial election, no. Yeah, and this is a sign. We're talking about that. It just started to rain. By-election first, provincial election after.